Hello, Goa fans. Mark, aka DJ Solitaire, here with episode 5 of my retro Goa explorations, in which I present some of the tracks that really inspired and moved me back in the 90s in the Goa trance electronic music dance scene. So far, I've been focusing on tracks in the 94 to 95 season. I'm going to continue doing that a little bit because this is really the foundation of all of the music that would come later. Although I would dare say that some of the music we're listening to now has become quite disconnected from some of the roots, because there's a lot of the sounds and patterns and so on that are not being used in your music, which could be, without it feeling like we're just going back to the past and not evolving. And I've been really focusing on some very formative influences in the scene, and several of the musicians still being active today. And that's also the case with today's project. And it's all been projects so far, not individual musicians. And I've 2, 3 musicians per group. Today's is one of the projects with 4 musicians, and that is Etnica, who also later had another project called Pleiadians. And Etnica has 4 musicians, 2 of whom are still active in the project, Max Lafranconi and Maurizio Bigotti, still active in the group, and at the time also with Carlo Paterno and Andrea Rizzo, 4 amazing musicians who started their creations in the early 90s. And the track today, Astral Way, comes from a Blue Room single that was paired with one of their biggest hits called Tribute. And Tribute made it on a lot of different compilations on different labels. And that was the way people like me who bought CDs would be exposed to a lot of this music. Because Blue Room, the label to which they were signed at the time, didn't release this on CD until a couple of years later. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see. But eventually this CD came out, but it was a bit mixed. I mean, in the sense of they mixed the tracks together just gently at the ends. And Blue Room didn't do nearly as many compilation CDs as did Tip or Dragonfly and so on. So Astral Way was a little bit more obscure. And I think it was also a little bit different in terms of character uh, from some of the other tracks that Etnica was doing. And so I think it's particularly interesting. It's also a very evocative and certain kind of style that I really appreciate. Not that I don't appreciate their other music, I certainly do. But there were some qualities here that I wanted to focus on. Maurizio told me that this was one of the first tracks that they made in the Soundbusters studio, where they recorded the first EP, Brainstorm, and they went there as clients, and then they ended up using it at night, and that the owner liked them, and so they got to stay, and then eventually moved to another studio upstairs where they produced the IFO album, the Pleiadians album that was released in 1997. But this is a studio where they did Tonight, Starship 101, and other classics that were on their album. And their album has a much more cohesive sound signature than that's a little bit different than these 2 tracks, Tribute and Astral Way. Only playing Astral Way today, but Tribute was the first one that I heard, that I owned on CD, I should say. And then Astral Way, I remember hearing at parties, and I'm not 100% sure because again it was all new to me, but I'm pretty sure this is something that Cooney would have played outdoors at one of those Equinox parties, and most likely at the one in September 95 that I spoke to where he had played Stellium. And it just fit with his style. I mean, he had such a huge range of, his palette was really quite varied. And this really fit that outdoor kind of quality for reasons that I'll be describing. So one of the things that I love about this track is that atmospheric sound. And we're going to start off, I got an unmixed copy of this that I wanted to hear the full fade in. And, it's quite long. and then the full fade out, where you really get the ambiance and that real depth and expansiveness of the music. And it was all done in time. So some of these long fade-ins, I mean, there's still the rhythm. You know, one of the things that bothers me about when they talk about beat matching for DJs, I think they should call it kick matching if you're doing kick on kick, because you can still beat match with the rhythm, because there's still the count that's going on with the ambient overlays that will go 4 bars, 8 bars, 16 bars. And you can put that over the other track with the kick. And that's how I used to mix off that, if the BPMs are pretty aligned. And those intros and outros are really important parts of the music. They really set the stage. At least they did back in the 90s, when the musical content of the introduction and the outro were absolutely related to what was going on in the track. Nowadays, the introductions and the outros don't really seem to have much to do musically in terms of content with what's going on. But this track is a classic. It's a biggie. And it really is an ideal one for when you're outdoors and you've got that sense that you're hearing the planet breathe and undulate, that you're connected to outer space and you're getting these waves and these transmissions that are coming down, or that you're beaming up. So there's this real pulsating quality to a number of the figurations in this track. Another feature that's in there that was really big part of Etnica's music, and I think a big part of the experience of the music back then, was that sense that you're hearing voices. One later track by the project in their Pleiadians guys had what was it? It was something along the lines of music and voices all around us, or something along those lines. I can't believe I can't remember it now. And so you would have this sense that you're listening to some code, and it's these alien signals or these signals from another dimension that are being transmitted through sound waves, and they sound almost like human voice. There's something with how the really successful ones were shaped that it sounded like a kind of natural inflection of language, but not English or Japanese or whatever language per se. So it just spoke to you on this deeper level that you're listening to some transmission. And as I named before, with the counterpoint, when you have this polyphonic, layering of one complete melody or signature or pattern or motif, it's the term they use in classical music, over another, it's like there's multiple messages being communicated at the same time. And there's this interaction of information. And when you're there on the dance floor and under the stars and moving around, you sort of start having this experience of processing different aspects of your reality on these different levels simultaneously. And so there seems to be, I used to experience certain thoughts being associated with certain lines, and then it would start taking me off into some interesting ideas while in movement. So enough blabbing on. I will put on the track, which we'll listen to from the very beginning with all those undulations straight through to the end. And listen to this incredible track by Etnica, Astral Way. Here we go. So again, that sounds like a voice, doesn't it? It's not. And then just this beautiful undulating sound. It's a wave. There it comes again. And then hear something like that come in more regularly. There we go. So there's this like pulsing. It's like those radio signals that they would send out into space, right? Or that we might be receiving. Or like this heartbeat. And there's that voice together with that pulse. So this sounds like, there's two voices. There was that one that sounded more like a woman's voice. It's just a bit higher, and then that lower, deeper one. And now beat shifts slightly when the kick comes in. And every 8 bars, there's something that happens. Little hi-hat energy comes in there. But again, it doesn't sound explicitly like a drum kit, right? It's just mirroring that. And now this pattern comes in. And it's like this signature, it's like this mathematical equation. So you've got this little stem that just repeats. It goes through its own little transformation. It goes down a little bit each time. It's like almost like showing this chemical process or reaction as each time it repeats, it goes down. Notice how clearly you can hear all those different layers happening, but everything is still so simple and clear. Just because it's simple doesn't mean it's not deep. Got that light pump, 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 pump. Add some buoyancy there. Notice how, again, the kick comes out, but the same musical content is continuing and evolving. It's not new material that comes in. The tension builds when the kick comes out because there's evolution happening in it. This kind of vibrating. Just very otherworldly kind of harmonies and patterning. Just imagine each one being a voice. Or if you imagine it as some kind of equation, you could see different colors or different waves for each one. It becomes quite a pattern. And something really hypnotic about that repetition. Really creates this trance-like effect. And now that lower voice comes in that way. And again on the next beat. Again, it's like a dialogue, isn't it? Got that upper pattern happening. All these different registers being used in these different sounds. This wonderful exclamatory, celebratory, but mystical kind of pattern going on here. Not very complex. Da, 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 da. Now it's blending, some of those different voices all blending together now. And building up. Again, that sounds a bit like a cosmic ambulance. Little note change just over there. And more of that vibrating. That interval just really sounds like, again, has that ambulance kind of emergency signal that we're either beaming out or that they're sending to us. And that little voice comes in here. Now that comes back. And then, and now this riff here. Simultaneously celebratory and almost with a bit of anguish in there. Very simple. It's got a lot that Man with No Name would bring in this kind of thing as well, this repetition. And there's just one little change here. Just to give you a little shift. And kind of melting quality over here. Like everything's almost realities kind of melting and defragmenting. And kick stops. All of this is still building up. All those little effects, the way the same pattern goes through these little adjustments. And more of that melting inequality. And now, that voice is transformed. And it's just this comes right before the transition out of the track. And it's just kind of like, okay, transmission done, guys. Hope you got the message. Something so simple and exclamatory, and just like, this is just what is. And that little drum, notice how the drums will just change just a little bit before a transition. Some parts dropping out, beat-shaped bars. Now this little almost ascending pattern is quite unusual. This is, you might expect this more at the beginning of the track than at the end. It's just kind of as if things are drifting off and drifting up. But that bass pattern still there. It just leaves us with that. Come on. That is some deep stuff. You know, I mean, it's simultaneously complex and simple. I'm not saying it was simple to make it. I mean, these guys were using like real hardware, and there was like a lot going on at the time to be able to do that. But just, you know, those, each stem, the patterns are pretty straightforward. They're all singable, hummable, certainly danceable. And they play well with each other, right? And that's kind of, again, the atmosphere of the parties. You know, can we all come together and just play well together? People from all over the planet, dare we say it, from all over the cosmos, sort of gathering in one spot, and everybody gets along. And as I named in a previous episode, you know, if you imagine that each melodic stem or motif was like one person at the event, you know, some of them come and go as you're dancing through the party, and they show up again. And so it just has that, the cohesiveness and the togetherness that comes from all these disparate parts coming together cohesively, harmonically, melodically, and all getting along. And I mean, really deep atmospheric track. And it's interesting, right? The different moods that I think used to be present in a lot of the music. I think now things are very like, they're up or they're kind of dark. Not a whole lot in between. And here it's a little bit broody, but still a bit uplifting and has a mystical quality. You know, you could, in terms of when I would play this, I would probably play this, you know, it would be dark. It wouldn't be the first part. Well, the very first part of the party, maybe. I'm seeing this more sort of middle of the night. I would want to be under the stars personally for this. Maybe before dusk. Not sure, you know, this isn't quite a play this in the middle of the day track. You know, all of that undulating and everything, it really sounds like the sounds of space and of the planet breathing, and, you know, as we're dancing and massaging our feet, massaging the planet with our feet as we dance on the earth. So, you know, it's got a lot of power and depth, and it's still really simple, and it's celebratory despite being deep. Just a magical track. So hats off, gentlemen. Absolutely love this one. And there we go. Okay, so that was Astral Way by Etnica. I'm going to sign off here and put on the track without me talking over it, so you can enjoy the full masterpiece of this great production. Thank you for tuning in. Mark, aka DJ Solitaire here, and I'll see you next time.